Okay, today I want to walk you through how I make my cloth masks that specifically have pleats and also matching ties. And this first component I want to show you is the ties part because um, using homemade ties that match your fabric, obviously it's cute. It's kind of a pain because it's more time consuming. However, the reason I have been doing it is because there are some other options you can use, but there are some issues with them that I've found. So first, elastic would be an obvious option, but it's kind of in short supply. And also you might have somebody who has an allergic issue with elastic, or you might not want to use it because it breaks down. If it breaks down in the drying machine, and also you don't get as good a fit. Another option is shoelaces. I have no shoelaces in my house. And then another option I tried was just basic ribbon, satin ribbon, and I found it was too slippery for my Asian hair. So here we are at ties, and the reason I wanted to do one specific chunk about just the ties themselves to start is that this process, I just learned a couple things along the way. Now, first, what I recommend before you even get your mask started is, I feel like doing it in phases and batches is the way to go. So you'll actually see kind of in the background here, I'll bring it up, that I have a bunch of pieces that I ironed and prepped in advance, just because doing a bunch of different ones in advance was so much better. So when you cut your ties, one tutorial from the New York Times that I have leaned heavily on, they recommend doing their strips 3/4 of an inch, but then I found them impossible to fold. So my strips are more like 1.25 inches. Let me just do that. And then what I do is press them in half when you're downstairs or wherever doing your ironing. So you've got a nice flat fold. So then the way you get your ties ready to sew is that you're going to want to create the finished end that's going to be facing out. So I would fold it over once and then fold 1/2 over to the pressed line and then fold the other. So ultimately, this is how you're going to have it. And then put it together. Again, you kind of see how it's sort of, you just got to kind of scrunch it in there. You could press this downstairs, but I just found like I hate ironing so much. It's another step. And once you have that in place, just grab a pin. My pins are all wonky and bent. And just pin that shut, okay? But now the thing is, when you're actually sewing these, and again, I sew them all in batch, I found when I was first trying to do this is that I would try to sew from this end that is all folded over and done. And my machine kept getting caught. So a bunch of my ends, let me try to find a bad one. Seriously, I do have some. Actually, this was the second mask, so they're a little bit better. But on this one, yeah, a bunch of them, like the fabric just got all like mangled and tied and not so great. And I knew my mom would be judging me if I gave her a mask like that. So I realized when you sew these all shut and you're going to sew them down the middle, start with the loose end that is not, you don't need to run back and forth over. That's why I was getting the knots on that other one. So just, fold over. You just do your simple fold over to meet them in the middle. You're basically creating bias tape. Fold them over. And because it's not popping out, since you don't have the finish fold, you can just hold it like that and stick it in your machine. Put the foot down and put your needle down, and it'll be pretty much in the center. And then what I do instead of pinning this whole thing, because I'm lazy about pinning and my pins are all bent, is I just fold over 1/2, fold over the other half to meet it, and I just kind of hold it. You see, I've got, I don't know, what is this length? It's around 6 inches in length. That is ready to go. And then you don't have to back and forth over the end, because you'll do that plenty when you actually attach these into the mask, and just go down right the center. Okay, and then you stop when you're getting close to the end of your folded bit, and you just do the same thing. You just fold 1/2 over, fold the other half to meet it. Now your raw ends are all tucked in. fold both over, and now you've got a nice tie, okay? And then just keep going. Okay, and you'll just have to do one more of these. You'll see you've already got your pinned end here, so it should be pretty easy to meet those two ends. You see, we're all set. Go to the end. Okay, now slow down when you get to your pin, so you don't run your pin over. Take it out. And what you're going to want to do is just hold the end, you know, guide it the rest of the way through, and then go back and forth a couple times just to really secure that end. So watch. I'm slowing it down. And done. Clip it real short, and you'll want to clip the threads on the other side. And boom, look at that finished end is all clean. You don't have that hot mess that I had on my other ones where I tried to start from that side. And what I would recommend is, this is actually for that pile, but I would recommend doing all of your ties before you do your mask assembly, because then you will just generally feel less crazy. The next step I want to walk you through is making a really easy pocket. So at first when I started making these masks, I was sewing a separate little pocket. It involved like hemming the sides. It was crazy making. But I picked up on a video for a much sort of simpler design, how to make a really easy pocket. And I was like, I'm here for this, even though it means a little extra fabric. So what you'll need, what I did actually in the ironing phase is I have these 10, this is for the adult, I've got 10 by 6 rectangles that I pre-cut. I also have modified this as 7 by 5 for little kids. But you'll need 3 pieces for each mask. And what you're going to do to make the pocket is take 2 of those fabric pieces and put them, this is the one I'm making for my mom. I think it kind of conjures Korean celadon. So put them face to face, which means like the nice pattern side in. You want to line them up, and then all you're going to do is grab a pen, and for the 10 by 6 design, I just mark 3 inches into each side. So I just make a tick mark, like so. Okay, you can see those tick marks, and this opening right here, from here to here, is going to be your pocket. And then you need to figure out the midpoint this way. So just from this direction, it'll be 3 inches, since it's 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3 people. And just make a mark in the other direction. Same thing for the other side. And then you're going to draw a line down the center. And just give me a second, I'll show you. And you want to intersect the pocket opening line. So here's what you'll end up with, okay? So now what we're going to do is really quick, and you don't have to, you know, go back and forth over the ends at all, is we're going to just sew along your drawn lines. Real super quick. I recommend before you put the foot down, putting the needle down, because you can actually see it better with the foot not up or down, in my opinion. So just sew along the line. Okay, and then I don't even clip at this point. I just kind of pull it out. Okay, and then I'm going to put my needle back in. Done. Lift the foot, pull it out, and here I clip the strings that's connecting over here on the side and on the other side. So you've stitched this way, okay? And now what you're going to do is take each side of fabric and fold it over and just kind of press it flat with your fingers. If you have an iron easily ready and you like those, you know, press lines to be really flat, go for it. I personally just hate ironing with a burning passion, so I have worked on reducing my amount of iron time as much as I can. Okay, so now we're going to sew those seams down on either side. I'm going to sew really tight to the line. Okay, and when I get to the end here, I'm not even going to clip anything. I'm just going to turn it around, lay my foot down, and go down the other side. And I'll show it to you in just a second. All right. Pull it out, and let me get this up close to you so you can hopefully see it, but you'll see the seams, the top stitching is really tight, and now when you open that pocket, like it's just reinforced so that little seam right here doesn't get split. Yay! And now that's the pocket. And then the next step will be to move on to the final mask assembly. Okay, now I want to show you the step of adding the ties, because I found in one of the tutorials, like, bunching all the ties in the center was just really hard, and it was all lumpy and difficult to deal with. But having the pocket actually gives you like a little escape hatch for your ties. Okay, so you've got your tie or your pocket right here, which is amazing. Now we're going to attach the ties to it and the other side of the fabric. So you're going to put your third piece of fabric face in, okay? And what I recommend is just adding a few pins along the edge. So actually first what I recommend is you need to leave an opening so you can turn your mask inside out and have it being right facing out. So right here and right here. So what I recommend is actually putting like barrier pins to say, no, do not sew in this area. Okay, so like that. These two pins will be my markers to tell me to not sew there. And then I also recommend, until you get really familiar with the rhythm, is putting a pin in each corner so you don't accidentally sew over where your tie needs to go. So let's see. So if we're going to start down here, let's see. Actually, when you get to that corner, that's not going to be an issue, but basically put a few pins before your corners so you can remember that you need to add your ties, because that will be a bummer if you don't have that. So I just, put a few in the corners, and I've got my two barriers to remember to open them. All right, so this first side, we just go straight to the corner. I'm going to take my pin out. I'm lining my fabric up with the end of the foot of the sewing machine, and I'm going to go straight to the corner. All right, so you want to leave, the seam allowance. So I'm lifting up my foot, I'm turning it around. Now before I keep sewing, I've got to add my first tie. So grab one of your pre-sewn ties, find the raw edge, and now here's the trick. Is you snake it up through your pocket hole, grab it from the other side, here it is, you can see it coming out right there, and then you're just going to tuck it and line it up flat next to your needle, because that's like where you want it to be nice and tight. Make sure it's lying flat. Oops. Yeah, just push it flat. There you go. And make sure your fabric is, it's all lined up still, okay? So your first tie is in there now, and then go all the way till you get maybe an inch out to your next corner. Okay, so now I've taken my corner pin out, grab the next one by the loose by the unfinished end, snake it up through your pocket. So now you can see that your actual finished ends are out the pocket. They're not all bunched up in the middle of your design. Lift up your foot. Your needle should be in your fabric to hold it. Lift up your foot and then scoot that tie right next to your needle, lining it up. And the reason I do this so that there's a little space before you get to your corner turn is so that your ties aren't caught in the actual corners of your mask. All right, now sew till about 1/4 inch or whatever you're using for your seam allowance. And you might need to just go slow as you go over the ties since you're going through more layers of fabric. Okay, we're gonna turn. And here's, nope, that's on the other side actually, ignore me. Okay, now we can just go straight until we get to our 1/4 seam allowance on the other side. And the nice thing is we're not risking running over our ties because they're actually out the other pocket. Taking out my corner pin. All right. Slow down it once you get to your 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn it around again. All right, grab your third tie, loop through the unfinished end. Okay. And just like you did before, you've lifted up your foot, your needle's still in your machine, you line it up right next to the needle, flatten the fabric down, make sure it's all nice and straight. Put your foot down and then sew to the next corner, maybe 1 inch out. Okay, this is your final tie. Again, needles in, lift up, thread through your unfinished end. And that last needle in there, if you feel like you can remember that that's where you need to stop, you could take it out, but you could also just leave it in. I've got this tucked in nice and straight next to the needle. Lay down the fabric, lay down your foot, and go all the way to your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, this is your final turn. Now you can see we've got 1 pin left. That's your marker to remember to stop. I'm going to just put a finger there and stop there and go. Okay. I'm going to just pull this out. And now you're going to turn this inside out. And the awesome thing is you can just grab your ties and it'll help you pull them out. And there you are. And actually, yeah, I would recommend using either the point of a pen or a chopstick or the end of a paintbrush just to poke your corners out, because you'll need those to be as nice and even as you can. And there you have it. This is, you know, the almost final step, but you've just added your ties to your mask. Okay, we're on to our final step, which is assembling our mask. Hooray! We have our ties in, we have our cute little pocket for our filter. So you have this open end here, which is where you reversed and pulled your mask inside out. So the first step is on the front-facing mask side of the mask, not the side with the pocket. That's where we're going to do our pinning, okay? So you want to just tuck in that seam. You know, I do it by holding it really straight, tucking it, and then just secure it with a pin. All right, good. So you don't, that way you'll make sure you get it nice and shut. I also, you know, again, this is a time when you could press the top edges, but I'm so lazy about that and I really don't like doing it. So I just pull it shut. Actually, I'll put 2 pins in there and then just secure a pin near that seam, those 2 seams. Again, I'm just going to pull it shut, like pull it tight so I know I've got the seam. Because man, my iron is downstairs and I just don't like ironing. I just really don't like it. Okay, so this is the front of our mask. Now the next thing you want to do, you've got your two pins just to secure the top of it. You've got one pin just to secure the bottom opening that will just sew shut. And now you want to make the pleats. And the reason the pleats are important is, you know, there are some tutorials where you have an elastic and it just bunches it all down, but I don't know, it wasn't working for me. The pleats are the best design that works for my family, so that's what we're doing. So you're gonna have 3 pleats, and I recommend starting in the center, and you wanna be mindful of your seam on the other side, and you want your pleat to be facing down, like the fold to be facing down. So see how the fabric is facing down? And I would pin it a little bit further out, so not right on top of the seam, mostly because it's hard to get the needle through, and then you can just leave it there. So you'll see I've got one pin right here. I'm going to repeat. I'm going to find the seam on the other side where the pocket is. Get that nice and tight. Okay, so we've got our first pinning. And now this way you can easily see the midway point to do the next 2 seams, okay? So again, just face them down, pin out a bit of a distance. I can't wait to I ordered some new pins because all of mine are so bent and wonky and it's super annoying. So I can't wait for those to come. I'm just doing the other side now. I also don't have a ton of pins in this pin cushion, so it's not the greatest. Okay. But this is like all about making do with what you've got, I've found. Okay. Seriously, do I have another pin here? I do. Okay. All right, so you can see, I don't have this totally folded over here, it doesn't matter, but you've got 3 pleats on each side. So for some reason, I just always start in this bottom corner here. So I'm going to turn the mask around and we're going to put the machine needle in on this corner and start sewing around the side. I go in maybe a 1/4 inch, a little bit less. I toss one of those ties to the side. Your needle, you can use the guide rail of having the foot of your needle be against the end of the mask. Lower your foot, lower your needle. And this is where you want to be really careful and go slow over these pleats because there's a lot of fabric. And here's where I will also recommend, if you have not replaced your needle in a while, that would really help. I had a horrible sound coming out of my machine, like a hammering sound anytime I used it. It was just the needle was super dull. As soon as I changed it, like everything got better. So just go really slow over this first side. Really slow as you come into the corner. With your needle down, lift up, turn, get that other tie out of the way. At this point, I just like to snip the loose threads to get them out of the way. Okay, so now we're going to come up on the top of our mask, or yeah, the top of our mask. It's just a straight shot all the way to the end. Just watch out for your pins and take them out as you go. Okay, I'm coming up on a pin. I'm taking it out. Coming up on my second pin, taking it out. And just be mindful of your pleat needles and, you know, as you go along here, and go all the way to the end. I'm going to slow down as I come to the corner. Needle in, foot up, turn it. Actually, you know what? I could go another stitch, so I'm going to just do one more by hand. Actually, I'll do 2 more by hand to move it forward. Okay. Turn it, flip that other tie back, lower the foot. Now it'll be a little easier because your pleats are facing down, but again, go slow over this side. Okay, get to your corner. Foot, needle in, foot up, turn it, foot down. Now we're coming up to the bottom half, and this is where you've got your open seam. Okay, so you have one needle to watch out for down here. Just hold it nice and straight and make sure you're not, you know, this is a straight one right here. Okay, I'm going to take this pin out and hold it straight so we make sure that seam stays nice and shut. Okay, I'm going to backstitch just a couple, and then I'm going to backstitch a little bit more, so I'll go back and forward on that corner. I don't want to take it out to show you, I'll show you at the end. And then we're going to go a second time around, which is really important in order to like keep those seams, you know, make sure they don't break. So I'm going to go back and forth a couple times. Okay, and now I'm going to back up. And you can go a 1/4 inch. I think that's what the New York Times recommends. I go, you know, that would be okay. You can do that on the larger mask. On the little kid masks, the space is so small, so I go in actually like quite a bit tighter, but I do make sure there's 2 layers of stitching around, and just go around once again. And this time you can like start taking the pins out, and then it's all coming together. Again, go carefully over these multiple layers of fabric. Okay, so I'm coming up to my corner. I'm going inside the existing seam. Needles in, foot up, turn it. Actually, I could go a little bit, one more, so I'm going to go one more just by hand. Okay. All right, and now I'm going to just take these pins out because I don't need them anymore. And also, that way I won't run over the seam on this top level. Just make sure that's nice and flat. And I'm just going to go straight down to the other end. Okay, come into the corner. Okay, needles in, lift the foot up, turn it, throw that tie over there, and we're on our final pleat side. Again, go slowly over these pleats. All right, last turn. Needle in, foot up, turn it, throw your tie over. Okay, and now we can take these needles out. Oh my gosh, finish line, people. So gratifying. All right, and just make sure you don't run over that pleat down there. And this is the final turn. Okay. Now, important, backstitch back and forward, go a couple times, because that'll really secure your tie. Okay. Oh, you know what? I lost my bobbin thread for this last little bit, so I'll have to redo that. This is what happens. But look, okay, we've got 3 pleats. I'm going to try to show you, I hope you can see this. You've got 2, you've gone around twice to really reinforce that seam. So pretty. And then this last step is I take, for these large masks, I just take a coffee filter, cut it in half, and stick it in there. If you want to see it, I'll show it to you. Like, that's literally all you do. And then you can just open this up and tuck it in. You can do a much neater job. I also, a friend of mine, like, how much do we love Emily? She dropped off these shop towel filters, which apparently are supposed to be really good for this. So I will use my current, since I have a limited quantity of this, my current approach is going to be to use the coffee filters as my filter when we are just sort of out for a walk in the neighborhood where we can really put a lot of distance between us and another person, and use the shop filters for when we're in more closed conditions, like when I have to go to the grocery store, the dreaded grocery store run. So that is it. Very exciting. You know, they take a little time, but this is what we do now. And one of my favorite things is gifting these to people who need them. So this one is going to go to my mom. And, you know, I delivered a couple around the neighborhood, including one of these. This is the loose pieces, but to a friend with a toddler. So it's all good. So I hope this was helpful to you, and let me know how it goes. Okay, till next time.